Apple's new AI is coming from Microsoft.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the All Future Podcast, now featuring 10,000 subscribers.
Yes.
Pretty cool. I was thinking about that on the drive here this morning. I was like, when we started doing this podcast, I could see snow on the mountains when I was driving over to your place here, and no snow anymore. So we've gone through a couple seasons and 10,000 subscribers. So
Yes.
pretty cool. Glad you guys are on board. Hopefully we're doing this when the snow returns to the mountains.
That's true. Hopefully.
So, yeah, just a few months away, I guess.
I guess would that be? Well, I probably can't hit 20 that quickly.
No, probably
15?
not. I guess maybe we'll have a warm winter, and maybe we'll be at 20 by the time snow goes back in the Los Angeles mountains there. But today, we're talking about AI, one of our favorite things to talk about here for sure. And the kind of just the feeding frenzy with investors and OpenAI to start things off, as well as some other news with some other big investments happening from traditional tech companies into some of these newly formed AI companies.
Yes.
Ryan, what's going on, man?
Well, first off, OpenAI is already very highly valued. I think their ChatGPT is probably the thing most people know of when they think about AI. And they're now being valued at about $100 billion, with Apple, NVIDIA, and Microsoft planning on investing into this next funding round. So OpenAI, they're very much based on funding at this point. This is all very much lots of spending on this future tech for what it can deliver in the future. But it's quite interesting to see Apple and Microsoft, among NVIDIA as well, all going in on this investment. I think especially I was surprised to hear about Apple here, because obviously we heard about this partnership with them integrating GPT into Apple Intelligence. But I don't know. Didn't really expect them to go this heavy on investing, like on an actual investment round with OpenAI. What do you think about this?
Oh, man. Am I about to blow your mind, buddy?
Does it happen all the
I'm
time?
about to blow your mind. I'm going to throw out a couple company names. Let me see if you ever heard of them. Brayburn?
No?
Never heard of that. M12? Ever heard of that?
No.
That's because those are the very secretive investment arms of Microsoft and Apple, respectively. Brayburn is the Apple hedge fund investment arm, which is located, I think, in Arizona or New Mexico or something. They left California so they wouldn't have to pay taxes. And this is where, man, modern world that we have built is insane. You can make an argument that Apple is a hedge fund company that happens to build smartphones. So Brayburn manages all of Apple's cash. So hundreds of billions of dollars. And because they are 100% held by Apple as a subsidiary, there's no reporting requirements at all to what they invest in. There's rumors all over the place about how heavy Apple is into all kinds of companies you wouldn't expect. Meta, Microsoft itself, all kind of, military industrial companies, like all kinds of, they are invested in many, many, many things. And M12, which is Microsoft's kind of version of that, is also like they constantly investing, billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And people just have no idea this is going on behind the scenes. So it's kind of funny when you invest in that, when you buy Apple stock, where that money's actually going is into their asset management company. And that's what they're doing with their cash. That's why Apple is such a uniquely good investment for people, is because Apple generated so much cash in the early 2000s that they were able to turn that into one of the largest investment firms in the world. So, this is, some people don't even think about this, but that's where most of Apple's wealth is in investments in other companies.
All right.
Yeah. So there's a little side note for you.
I am not surprised about this move whatsoever that Apple is investing in OpenAI.
Yeah.
I guess this is kind of the thing that happens all the time, that we see multiple companies doing this. But this one, I guess, is just a little more surprising because we saw Apple on the investment or on the partnership side, and Microsoft we've definitely heard about directly being involved with OpenAI in the past.
Right.
So this just kind of raised this question of, are they...
Well, because Microsoft did trades for it. I say not like stock trades, but Microsoft investment deal in OpenAI also had OpenAI commit to partnering with Microsoft on certain things, right? So like that's a much more public investment. That's really a partnership and not just owning shares of the company, right? Because OpenAI, I believe, uses like Azure or whatever, like Microsoft's cloud system and all that kind of stuff, right? And everything with Copilot and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, they have like a lot more public-facing kind of partnership.
Yeah. Because Copilot is basically built off of
just
GPT.
Yeah, it is. That's what it is, right? Like, so it's 100% that. Whereas Apple seems to be they're developing their own internal LLM, and then also will use OpenAI and presumably other stuff in the future when it gives you that little prompt and bounces out.
Yeah.
But talking about this $100 billion valuation, that's kind of what they're looking at for this round of funding, right? But there's so many people that like want to be on that cap table from OpenAI that on the secondary market right now, which is not something that normal people don't really have access to this level of investment, right? You got to be like some kind of institutional investor, some kind of VC thing. But there's people who have shares of OpenAI that have sold those shares and kind of side deals. I don't know the best way to describe it. It's the shady way our financial system works, and they're valuing it much higher than $100 billion. Like they'll do valuations of like 150, 160. So it's if you want to get into OpenAI right now, you're already having to value it super high.
Yeah.
After this round, if they do go with $100 billion, it's going to immensely higher if they do any other rounds. Because one, you have to do that so you can get stock dissolution, right? Like, so you don't want you want the value of your stock for being early to be worth more than some guys who buys late. So they kind of I don't want to say artificially, but they kind of make sure that valuation keeps rising so that their value of their early investment keeps rising.
Yeah.
Because the game is rigged and the rich get richer or whatever. But it's interesting that these companies believe in this thing that much, right? Because you can talk about does AI have a future? Is it just a gimmick? All this kind of stuff. But when you start talking about $100 billion, so that's I don't know what the number is, but I'm willing to bet that's more than they invested in, say, 3D TVs or these other technologies we talk about that failed.
Yeah. AI seems to be the big one. I mean, obviously it's covering the news. We're talking about it all the time. There's so many advancements, but all tech companies are going in, and it seems like they don't even really care if they're all doing the same thing because they just need to be a part of this.
It's just FOMO
and
kind
figure
of
it out
situation,
long
right?
term. Yeah, definitely FOMO because, essentially if Apple and Microsoft are investing here, they could be leading to a future where they're using basically the same AI technology coming from OpenAI. And at that point, I was going to say it a minute ago, but yeah, it raises that question of like, what is the difference then? What is the competition there? Are they building different things, or is it just...
You're asking the questions that are going to get the black helicopters to come take us away. What's the difference between any of this stuff, right? Like you talk about, Apple and its new M19 chip's going to be super cool or whatever. Who's making it? TSMC. Every damn chip we have in the world is made in Taiwan, right? What display tech are they going to use? Oh, the same Samsung display that every Galaxy phone uses, right? Like, it's like all this stuff is actually almost the same thing, right? It's like this difference of like aesthetics and marketing is what kind of makes the difference. Or the difference is made in really small areas. And I think that's something that Apple recognizes, right? Is that like, our hardware is essentially the same as everyone else's hardware. Yeah. And in some cases, literally the same, right? So it's like, how can we stand out? What's that small implementation that's going to make our thing a little cooler? And I think all these companies know that. And when you look at this rush to invest in OpenAI or to integrate LLMs into their products, that's what it's all about. Yeah. It's like, we know that actually all of our stuff is almost the exact same. So what's that one little thing we can get?
Yeah, I guess you could think of it as like, which phone would you rather search the internet on? It's going to be the same exact results. It's going to be the same exact experience on either phone. So you could do it on an iPhone in Safari, or you could do it on an Android. I assume Chrome's the default browser.
But you can use any.
Yeah, and you would use any.
On iPhone too, you can use other browsers.
But any browser, it's going to be the same. And so it's kind of the same thing here. You're going to get maybe the same AI results, but which phone do you want to experience that and get that information delivered to you more on? And Apple is going, it doesn't matter that it's the same info. We are going to build it into our ecosystem and make our customers want it because of the way we develop our software.
Yeah, for sure. Right. So I as someone who loves AI, I'm a proponent of let's invest in it. Let's make it cooler. Let's make it work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it still is a half-baked tech,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. So like, let's make it work. As a citizen who lives on planet Earth, I guess I'm like, oh man, just more tech companies making tech companies richer.
Mm-hmm.
I own both Apple and Microsoft stock, so whatever. But
Yeah, I think now we have to put that in the
full disclosure, SEC disclosure here.
Yeah.
I will profit as these companies make more money. Apple gets great dividends too, so I mean, lots of money every quarter when that dividend check comes in. I buy more Apple stock with it, so like I'm part of the problem, I guess. But yeah, it's really interesting.
One company that we aren't seeing investing in OpenAI is Amazon, and they're looking to partner with Anthropic on Claude for their new Alexa Pro. Essentially, again, every time I say that, I'm pretty sure that's a medication, Alexa Pro. But I think it's Lexapro.
Lexapro is 100% an antidepressant. Yes.
Yes. So that's a very funny. I can see them absolutely avoiding that branding.
Well, that's it. Aren't they gonna? I keep seeing them calling it Remarkable Alexa.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible name too. Too many syllables.
There's no. If they go to market with Remarkable Alexa and try to get me to subscribe to that, no. But anyways, they've been apparently working on a smarter subscription-based version of Alexa that they're calling Remarkable Alexa to come out later this year. But internally, it's not going super well, and it's not performing as well as they want it to, especially when they're stacked up against all these AI competitors. So now they're going to be partnering with Anthropic and delivering their new Remarkable Alexa built off of Claude sometime in October. And some of the main points that they list that this is going to be able to do is AI-generated news summaries, child-focused chatbots, conversational shopping tools, which is one of those Amazon things, but of course it's going to have conversational shopping tools. But apparently this Remarkable Alexa will cost between $5 and $10 a month, and then there will also be the free classic Alexa still available.
Who is going to pay for this, man?
I don't know.
And I say, again, I'm someone who loves AI stuff, but this is, well, from the top, I think this partnership's pretty smart. I think Amazon, like Apple, and like Microsoft too, just Microsoft did it first, was like, why don't we just invest in someone who's already doing this, and that way we don't have to keep failing trying to make our own thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's smart. Claude, I think, is really solid. Like I have not used that as kind of like a real LLM. I still use ChatGPT when I want some kind of AI thing. But when I've used Claude, it seems pretty solid. Like it seems pretty cool. So I think that's very smart to go with. But I've said this before. Who are the Amazon Alexa customers? They're people who want cool things, but want it for a reasonable price, right? Like it's always the budget kind of in stuff on everything, right? From the Fire Stick to Kindle HD tablets, like kind of like their iPad competitor, to things like Home Assistant things.
Yeah.
So it's all like, oh, I want the tech. I think the tech is cool, but I'm not paying that much money for it. You're gonna get that person to pay $5 to $10 a month for Alexa to help them buy the best version of Doritos off of Amazon or whatever people are doing that day, right? Like, I don't see it happening, guys.
I'm really curious to see how this develops, because of course they're in that space, so they're like, we need to move forward in this, we need to develop this. But yeah, like you were saying, a big part of them shipping those devices and shipping them at cheaper prices than, say, the competitors was because they were hoping people would use them to shop on Amazon, and it would be a tool to fund other parts of their business. And it just didn't really work. It's not really working. Not nobody, but I don't think the majority of people want to buy things from their Alexa with their voice on Amazon. They want to do at least a little bit of their own visual research. And so I'm very curious to see where this goes. And I think you're right. Like, how are they going to get people to pay for this? But
I got a pitch for you, Amazon. There's a free one for you, Bezos, right? Just raise everyone's Prime subscription. That's the only way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Please don't actually do this, but that's how you would have to do it, is make it like a tack on. It's like, oh, if you're a Prime member, we'll give you this for $1.99 a month. Something like that. Something that's a little more kind of impulse upgrade zone. And if I'm already paying the monthly Prime, which I don't even know how much that is. I do the yearly one, usually the discount, so I don't know.
It's gone up. I feel like it's like $120 a year, Wait, that sounds not that
That's
expensive.
low, I think, buddy.
That's low, yeah.
I think I want to say it's like 190 a year or
Yeah.
something like that.
And they have like tacked on now. You have to pay extra to get ads removed.
Oh yeah, for the streaming service.
streaming.
Yeah.
So just add another tack on to there, a little checkbox on your checkout.
I think that's the way to do it. Is like, oh, give it free to every Prime subscriber for 6 months, and then say if you want to keep using this, it's $1.99 a month or something, right? Like that will get people more in than some kind of like $10 subscription.
Yeah.
That seems good. $10 is a hard subscription. Like that's a hard thing to get people to bite off on.
Yeah. It does kind of lead to that thing though, where it's going to get probably so much better, and then they're just going to leave classic Alexa in the dust. But
oh yeah,
I guess you bought the device with the functionality it had. Hopefully you just keep that going. But then if they ship you a free trial of this very good updated version for 6 months and then take it away, it's going to be like, what?
Yeah.
This got so much worse, but it's actually what it used to be.
Yeah, you're just downgrading, right? Yeah, that's the move. That's how to get people to do this. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, so that's going to be delivered by Anthropic, and another company that is invested with Anthropic is Google. They have a roughly 10% stake after making a $300 million investment earlier this year into them. So that's another thing. We're talking about Apple and Microsoft and NVIDIA in OpenAI. Over on Anthropic, we have Google and Amazon. And then Google just announced a new thing this week that's pretty cool. It's called Google Gems, or at least they talked about it. And these are custom chatbots. My initial read on this is I think this actually could be kind of cool because it's showing clearly some of the functionality that these things can do, these AIs can do, that I think people don't really quite realize. Or you have to kind of, I don't know, you kind of have to be somewhat knowledgeable in the area as to what you can do and what buttons to click, versus this kind of creates this very specialized AI for you. And some of the examples they give are for Gemini subscribers. You can create custom chatbots that are things like a gym buddy, a cooking partner, a writing editor, and more. So would this be like you're at the gym talking to your gym buddy?
In theory, right? Like,
okay.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. This seems cool to me. I like this, right? I've always liked the idea of like customizing different AI kind of chatbots or models, whatever, like for specific purposes for people, because I think it's easier for people to wrap their head around what this is and what it can do when you kind of narrow down its focus.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, all these things you just listed, every LLM right now can do all that stuff. All right. Like you're not kidding. Like, but tailoring it a little bit, I think is cool. Because I think one of the problems you have when I explain to people, they're like, oh, like, you're using this LLM assistant kind of stuff. I was like, yeah, I use it all the time. And they're like, oh, what do you do with it? I'm like, oh, this. And they're like, oh, wow, that's a lot of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, like, you need to stop. I don't think people appreciate just the infinite use you can get out of these things. And you don't realize it because we're so used to very direct input output ways of computing that it's bizarre that, oh, I can just ask ChatGPT that.
Yeah.
Right? And
I keep having that experience where I'm about to Google something and I'm formulating how I'm going to do it. And then I'm like, wait, let me open GPT. And it almost takes me a second to just write it out regularly.
Yeah.
And like, okay, is it going to get it?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, all right. It got what I was saying.
Yeah, definitely. Right. And yeah, you don't need to like have that kind of organizational knowledge happening in your brain first on like how to get that information out, which is again what I think is the strength. So these things seem cool. I'm planning on playing around with this. I do not subscribe to Gemini right now, but I think worth it for a month just to check this thing out. I also love the idea of personalities for different moods. Right? Like there's sometimes, like I would say an annoying thing that happens with GPT for me is it like over answers. So I always have to like in my prompting go, give me 3 bullet points. Yeah. Right. Or something like that. Like, hey, just like direct stuff, man. I'm literally just trying to organize something real quick. I don't need like you to write me these novels, you know? And GPT notoriously will use these like flowery language and phrases and stuff. And I'm like, oh, just get rid of this junk. Yeah. Sometimes it's good, but that's not what I want a lot of times. So if I can have a dedicated, chatbot or gym, if you will, right? Let's say it's for workout and I just want to ask like, hey, I've got 10 extra minutes. I'm done with my set early. What should I do right now? Yeah. And it's like, bam, do this. And it doesn't go, well, doctors recommend in the history of medicine that you did, that's, so it's cool.
I had a very specific thing, which was that I was doing zone 2 cardio and then wanted to do VO2 max cardio, very specific. And I wasn't sure if I should do it back to back or if that like negates the result because my heart rate is already up from the previous cardio. And I asked ChatGPT and it gave me a whole big rundown of like what would be ideal. And it's like, you still could do it and you'd still get a benefit, but it'd be more beneficial to wait a few hours. I was like, wow, it's really good.
That's cool.
But then again, who knows what advice where it's pulling from. And a lot of that stuff is, I don't know, there's studies in different directions about what is best.
Sure.
So it is tough. It's always going to be tough to navigate that.
And that's one of the things I don't like about all the LLMs really right now is that it like hedges its bets on everything, right? Like if you ask, no way does it give you definitive answers right out the gate if you give it a generic prompt, right?
Yeah.
Or with something like that, like it'll be like, well, some say this and some say this, and if I have my trained workout gym, my gym in the gym, if you will, right? Like you can tell it like, hey, I want your best answer. That's it. Just go with that, right? Like, and just give it to me direct and whatever, right? Yeah. So it'd be cool.
Absolutely. I think first off, the branding of Gem off of Gemini is fantastic. If they came up with that after the fact, what a lucky coincidence that they happen to already have gems to pull from Gemini.
Yeah.
It's great. But apparently at launch, they're going to allow you to do custom ones, but then also have pre-made ones so that people don't have to
because
do
people
it right away.
people don't really know how to use these things.
Yeah.
I find like a lot of people don't know how to set up a conversation with LLM, no matter what it is now, because you can give it so many parameters, right?
Yeah.
And so if you start the conversation with parameters, it'll be a lot easier. You'll get much better answers, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But speaking of these two companies, OpenAI and Anthropic, they've both agreed to testing before wide releases. And that testing will be coming from the US AI Safety Institute, which will test their new models before releasing them to the public. And then they'll also be able to continue testing it when it is live in the public and they'll have full access. I wouldn't be surprised. My first thought on this is that I don't know, they wouldn't catch everything or they wouldn't be the best trained version of this. But obviously, this is something we need. So I hope this gets better in the future.
Right. Yeah. And I think this is going to be testing for like catastrophic, terrible things, right? It's not going to be testing for if it tells you to eat rocks or whatever, these weird like fringe cases,
Yeah.
So yeah, seems cool.
This is kind of coming as a result of, well, it's just general. We need this. But we saw CrowdStrike. So we saw how much just pushing a software update and can just destroy so many things. And then we saw Google. They were the ones that most famously were returning results. And I think that's because it was built in automatically. People were Googling things and getting these ridiculous results. That's why it got so much attention. So it's very good that we're seeing this. These are two of the most richly valued artificial intelligence startups, and they're going to have a little bit of oversight.
Speaking of testing to make sure there's not a complete AI doom and apocalypse, how about actual AI doom?
Yes.
And that is the famous 90s PC game Doom created in AI. This is kind of neat because it studied it and then literally just it's making it frame by frame generatively, which is, I think, pretty cool.
Yeah. I think it said it was 20 frames a second, which is somewhat emulating what the original was. And of course, this is still a case where it's a very outdated game at this point. I mean, that's 30 years old at this point. But still, I mean, this is the very early version of what could be coming in the future. And it's pretty crazy that it just watches this game. It didn't have access to any of its code, didn't have access to any of the background information on it. And it's able to emulate a basically full running version of this without a game engine, without any of the stuff that we normally have to build stuff on, which it's just an example on two sides. One, of how awesome this technology is and where it can go, but then also how easy it is for it to just copy things and steal things, because essentially it's just copying Doom, and it will have the capability to do that for almost anything in the future.
That's where it starts to get really interesting. Because yeah, I mean, we're talking about Doom, but you could apply that to all kinds of things that are currently proprietary and kind of kept secret or whatever. And then it's hard to like challenge something like that in like copyright situations, right? Because you're not copying the underlying code, the thing that is actually patented and protected, right? And if you just tell it, oh, make this game, except instead of an astronaut, make him a cowboy, and instead of monsters, I don't know, make them ghost.
Yeah.
Like, and he goes, okay, and it
Mhm.
just does it. Like, now you're not really violating any kind of copyright, right? So it's and you don't have to know any coding. You don't have to, I keep thinking of that. Your man Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, when he's all like, you stood on the shoulders of giants, and like didn't take you any work to get here, so you don't appreciate what it is or understand its impact. And we're talking about this with this Doom game, right? But you could extrapolate this to a lot of different things, right? Like, whatever, you're be like, hey, computer, make me a invisible stealth fighter jet, and it goes, okay, I'll just watch those things and figure out how it works and make it like. We're still obviously ways away from that, but that's what this kind of technology can do, just from observation, inferring a creation and then making it.
Yeah.
That was kind of a little negative, but I think this is pretty neat. And look, this is the future of video games, right? Like, it's going to be so hard for these companies already essentially hate their developers and all this like developer crunch and all this kind of stuff, right? And just want to squeeze as much money that they can out of the whole system. And you can go, hey, like, we don't need anyone. Like, just show it a couple video games and say, make that, and then it makes it. Wow, right?
You went a little negative again, Matt.
I'm sorry. I went negative. I was like, oh, this is neat. The technology is cool that's doing it. And obviously, there's a lot of cool applications for this, right? The flip side of it is that these companies that make games that people hate, that are just cash grab kind of games, now you can have the kid in his basement make the game that people love, right? It's a game of pure passion, and he doesn't need $50 million and 100 people to make it.
That's true.
He can make it himself and make something brilliant and cool and put it out in the world. And there's all kind of arguments you can make with that, whether it's ethical or right or copyrights, everything else through there. But that is the optimistic version of where this technology goes.
Yeah, I definitely am excited to see that.